This is an interview with one of the most well-known conquistadors known to date. Today, we are interviewing the great Hernando Cortes, the conqueror of the Aztecs. Cortes was an explorer starting at the age of 19. He was born in the year 1485 into a lesser noble family in Spain. Cortes later grew up and attended school at the University of Salamanca, but dropped out and became an explorer and made many great discoveries and achievements. He is best known for conquering the Aztecs and discovering California. Cortes was supposed to be in control of his own expedition in Mexico, but the expedition was cancelled. However, despite the orders given to him to cancel the expedition, Cortes sailed to Mexico with 500 men, 11 ships, and 15 horses. He arrived in Mexico in 1519 and befriended some of the natives and took land forcibly from the others. He used violence only when necessary to achieve his goals. He used his resources wisely to take down one of the most powerful civilizations at that time with only 500 men and 15 horses. He is truly a remarkable man, and in this interview, we will talk to him in depth about his greatest achievements. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Hernando Cortes.
All right, Hernando, nice for you to be with us today. So, I'm going to ask you a couple questions throughout the day, and first one being, what were your thoughts, conquering the Aztecs, since they're a big group?
Oh yes. Well, I didn't think much of them, although they were a large group. I was able to bring them down using their own religion against them, in a way, I guess you could say, and I brought them down using their weaknesses.
Well, all right. So, what do you mean by bringing them down using their own religion?
Oh, well, you see, when I got to the Aztecs' land, they thought of me as a god almost, so I pretty much just forced them to bring me their goods and riches, and that's what brought them down. They ran out, and I was able to bring the 3 Gs back to Spain.
When you joined Diego Velazquez and Nicola de Orvando and their expedition to the New World, were you paranoid or unsure that you'd make it back?
Well, I knew that we would make it back because I knew that God would lead us back to where we came from and He would help us discover new heights.
So, you were 14 at this time, right?
Yes, I was.
Did this affect anything?
Well, not as much as one would think, because that's when I was recently started studying at the University of Salamanca. So it helped being a college student at that age. That it helped me feel more independent.
Makes sense.
So I could voyage to the New World.
And your first wife passed away at this time. Did you feel any grief at that moment?
Well, not me personally, because I've never... Well, first, I guess, you always hear these stories of people's spouses passing and becoming depressed and overcome with grief, but that's never been the case with me. I've never been really an emotional man myself.
Alright, and you say you've never been an emotional man. Has that always been the case for you?
Well, I'd definitely say for the most part, because ever since I failed law at the University of Salamanca, I decided that I didn't have time to cry, and I didn't have the weakness to become overwhelmed with depression and grief, and I just decided to be a man about everything from that point on, that I didn't have time to sit and cry about it.
I see. So, your last expedition, was finding and naming California. How did this happen?
Well, actually, I wasn't trying to find California as it is now. You see, I was actually looking to find it straight from the Atlantic to the Pacific. So I wasn't really looking to find any new land, but it's still cool that I did. You always hear these stories about these explorers stumbling upon these new lands and naming them, and they weren't really looking for them. And this is none of one of those cases. I was just trying to find a strait from the Atlantic to the Pacific, and I stumbled upon California.
Why were you looking for a strait to the Atlantic, from the Atlantic to the Pacific?
Oh, that's because I was uh, quite quickly losing all my fame, fortune, and trust. So I had to gain it all back. So I needed to I needed to find a strait so that people could use it from right from the Atlantic to the Pacific, because it's always been a hard expedition to make if you are on the Atlantic coast and trying to get to the Pacific coast. That was not easy for most explorers because of weather conditions, so I was just trying to find a strait to make that all happen easier.
Miles, what did you do when you were accused of poisoning Ponce de Leon?
Well, I sailed to Spain to talk to the king himself. I brought him many treasures and riches, and I was then granted to be the Captain General of New Spain. So I went back being the Captain General, but I went back to some surprises, we'll say.
What did you do after you were granted your position?
Well, you see, I sailed back to Spain, and I was the new Captain General at that point. But I had found out that many accusations were made against me, including murdering my own wife. But that was just unreal to me because when I left, sure, I was somewhat of a bad guy. Some accusations made against me, but didn't let that hurt me. But now there was a lot more, including the one of murdering my own wife, and that didn't really touch me in a certain way. I was just so surprised and shocked that people would even consider me being an option of murdering my own wife. Although you could, you you don't have anything to really prove that it wasn't me, but I can tell you right now that I wouldn't do that. I was not heartbroken, so that's why some people thought that it could have been me, but I can tell you now that was not me, and I was surprised that I was even accused of that.
Very tragic. What did you first think of the natives when you saw them and their land?
Well, I was actually quite interested and intrigued in their culture. It was nothing like we had in Spain, so I saw some great potential in their land.
What did you exactly see, and what did you think of it?
Well, I did notice that they all had some very large piercings, and some had piercings that were so large that it caused some of their other body parts to look deformed, which was just I was the same way. It was quite disgusting. But their wildlife was what really interested me. So what I saw in their wildlife, it was kind of similar to what Spain had in their wildlife. So I definitely I wanted that land as soon as I saw that.
So, what were your motives in conquering the Aztec? What made you thrive for such a big challenge?
Well, it really bothered me the way they had their human sacrifices. That just was, I didn't like that.
Could you go in more in detail on what you disliked about them?
Well, like I said, their human sacrifices. That's just a completely obnoxious thing to do, especially over just sacrifices to some false gods in their culture. But it's not that I didn't like the human sacrifices. I mean, that was bad. That was bad as it was. But hey, everyone does it at some point. Every culture goes through it at some point. But just the way they did it was just what crossed the line for me. Like, you could say sacrificing their people was good enough or bad enough. I'm sorry, but just the way they did it was so obnoxious and savage that I couldn't couldn't believe it. So as soon as I knew that, that's the way they did things over there. I was happy to be the one to take them down. I wanted to. I wanted to be the one that caused the end of their culture there.
Yeah. Hernando, what do you recall about your expedition to Algiers when your ship sunk?
Oh, yes, that's the day I cheated death. And that's the day I was realizing how real life could get, because at that point it was kind of just like I was feeling like they were possibly my last moments on Earth. So of course I was saying lots of prayers and lots of prayers, and I was just kind of accepting the fact that I was about to not be a part of this Earth anymore, and that it touched me. And I don't get touched too often, but that did touch me. So that was a bit strange experience, but I'm just glad that I got out of it alive.
Did this change your thoughts on expeditions?
Well, it did in a way, because I kind of started taking I didn't really change the way my expeditions went. I kind of kept to my regular schedule, but it did help me to realize how real expeditions could get. It doesn't get any more real than that, because I almost drowned that day, but I didn't die. So it also gave me a lot more faith in God. I've always had faith in God, but this experience just made it a lot greater. So yeah, I guess you could say it kind of changed the way I thought about expeditions, helping me realize how real they could get. Like I was not invincible to anything.
So, Hernando, were you nervous capturing Cuauhtémoc, then taking him to Honduras and trying to stop the rebellion?
Well, I wasn't nervous because I had plenty of men with me, and not only that, but we did get rid of him. We took him to Honduras, and we did stop the rebellion, and we just got rid of him.
What are your feelings towards Cuauhtémoc?
Well, I didn't like him very much, and the reason behind this is he was an Aztec leader at this point. He was the only one left, because we had wiped out their empire already once, and he just had the nerve to start back up again and want to attack us. So we had to show him one last time that, well, we are the champions, and we conquered them, and we executed him when we got to Honduras.
What? You executed him?
Yes. We did execute him.
Wow, the great Hernando Cortes here.